My father didn't whisper the threat. He said it in a room full of lawyers, with a court stenographer recording every word. Sign the papers transferring your $580 million hotel shares to me, or I'll have you locked away in a mental institution. He thought he was the lion in the room. He thought I was the terrified daughter who would sign anything to stay free. He didn't realize that my attorney, Rebecca, was already smiling, because by saying the quiet part out loud, he didn't just hand us the court case. He showed me exactly where he was vulnerable. I didn't sign the papers. I walked out of that office, called my brokers, and started hunting for every single cent of debt my father had ever leveraged. He wanted to take my hotels? Fine. Now, I own the very bank he owes millions to. My name is Olivia Chen. I am 36 years old. I am the CEO of Cascadia Hospitality Group, a hotel chain that operates 47 properties across 11 states. The company is valued at $580 million. I have been running it for 6 years, since my 30th birthday, when my father retired from the CEO position and transferred operational control to me, while retaining controlling interest in the voting shares. The arrangement had always been that when he died, his shares would transfer to me. It was documented. It was his stated intention. It was the understanding on which I had built my adult life and career. 3 months ago, my father had informed me he was reconsidering that arrangement, that he was concerned about my judgment, that he thought perhaps transferring control to me had been premature, that he wanted to discuss restructuring. I had said we could discuss it, hired Rebecca, prepared myself for a negotiation. What I had not prepared for was a threat to have me declared incompetent and institutionalized unless I signed documents that would transfer my existing shares to him immediately. That was not a negotiation. That was coercion. And the recording of him saying it was the kind of evidence that changes cases. But it was not enough. Not for what I needed to do. I needed to understand his finances, not just the shares in Cascadia, his personal finances, the leverage, the debt, the places where a man who had built a hotel empire over 40 years had made choices that created vulnerability. Rebecca's investigator was a woman named Kenji Sato, 48 years old, formerly forensic accounting for the IRS, now private practice specializing in asset investigation for high net worth disputes. She sent me her report 3 weeks after the deposition. It was 62 pages. I read it in one sitting in my office after hours, when the building was empty and I could focus without interruption. The summary was clear. My father had leveraged significantly, not for the business. Cascadia was profitable and well capitalized, for his personal lifestyle. A penthouse in the city that cost $3 million. A vacation home in Aspen that cost another 4. Cars, art, the specific kind of expensive maintenance that a man in his position feels entitled to without considering whether his income actually supports it at the level he has grown accustomed to. He had taken loans, personal loans secured against his personal assets and also, more problematically, against some of his Cascadia shares. The kind of loans that are legal but represent risk if the underlying asset value changes or if the loan terms require restructuring. There were 3 significant creditors: a private wealth management firm, a specialty lender who handled real estate secured lending for high net worth individuals, and a smaller portfolio company that had purchased some of his debt at a discount from an original lender. The total personal debt load was $41 million. That was not fatal. Not for someone with his paper net worth, but it was substantial. And it created pressure. The kind of pressure that makes a man look at his daughter's shares in a company worth $580 million and decide he needs them more than she does. I called Rebecca the next morning. I have read the report, I said, and I want to buy his debt. There was a pause. All of it, as much as I can. I want to become his creditor. I want to control the thing he is most vulnerable to. That will cost you. I have the capital. Cascadia pays me well. I have been saving for years. I have investments. I can structure this. Olivia, her voice was careful. If you buy his debt and he defaults, you can force liquidation of the assets securing it, including potentially his Cascadia shares if they were pledged as collateral. I know. That is the kind of move that cannot be undone. I know that too. She was quiet for a moment. All right, I will reach out to the creditors. But you need to understand that this will escalate things significantly. Things escalated when he threatened to have me institutionalized, I said. I am just responding in kind. It took 6 weeks to structure the purchase. The private wealth management firm was willing to sell at 93 cents on the dollar. They were concerned about the litigation and wanted to remove the exposure from their books. I bought the debt through a limited liability company I created specifically for the purpose. Clean, legal, structured by attorneys who specialized in exactly this kind of transaction. The specialty lender was less willing but ultimately sold at 96 cents on the dollar when I offered a quick close and cash payment. The portfolio company sold at 87 cents on the dollar. They had bought the debt at a discount themselves and were happy to make a return on an asset they had not expected to monetize so quickly. By the end of May, I owned $34 million of my father's personal debt, purchased through entities he did not know were controlled by me, documented in loan agreements that gave me all the rights and remedies the original creditors had held, including, if he defaulted, the right to foreclose on the collateral, which included his penthouse, his vacation home, and 13% of his Cascadia shares that he had pledged to secure one of the loans. I did not tell him I had done this, did not announce it, did not send a letter or make a call or give any indication that the structure of his financial life had changed underneath him. I simply waited. The litigation continued. My father's attorneys filed motions. My attorneys filed responses. The court scheduled hearings. Everything proceeded the way these things proceed when families dispute wealth and control, and the things that were supposed to be given become things that are fought over. In July, my father missed a payment on one of the loans. Not a large one, $63,000. A quarterly payment on the real estate secured lending facility. The entity that owned that loan, my entity, sent a notice of default. A formal letter, 30 days to cure, standard language, the kind of letter that gets sent when payments are missed. My father called me 3 days after the letter arrived. I was in my office. It was a Thursday afternoon. I saw his name on the screen and let it ring twice before I answered. Olivia, hello. I need to talk to you about something. Can you meet me? I am very busy, I said. What is it regarding? Some financial matters. Some of my lenders have been sold to new entities and the terms are being enforced more aggressively. I wanted to discuss a possible short-term arrangement. What kind of arrangement? A personal loan, to help manage some cash flow issues while I restructure. I let the silence sit for a moment. How much? I asked. 200,000 would cover the immediate concerns. That is a substantial amount. I would pay you back with interest. Better terms than I am getting from these new lenders. Who are the new lenders? I asked. I do not know. The debt was sold to LLCs, corporate entities. I cannot determine the beneficial ownership. I see, I said. Olivia, I know things have been difficult between us, but I am your father. I built this company. I am asking for help. I thought about a conference room in March, about a threat recorded by a stenographer, about the words sign the papers or I will have you locked away. I cannot help you, I said. I am sorry. You cannot or you will not. I will not. You made choices about how you wanted to structure our relationship. I am making choices too. Olivia, I have to go, I said. I hope you are able to resolve your cash flow issues. I ended the call. The defaults continued. 3 more over the following 8 weeks. The entities that owned the debt, my entities sent notices. 30 days to cure, then 60 days, then notice of acceleration. Standard collection procedure. Everything by the book. My father hired a different attorney, someone who specialized in creditor negotiation. The attorney reached out to the LLCs seeking to negotiate payment plans. The LLCs, acting through their management company, which was Rebecca's firm, responded with standard terms. Full payment of outstanding amounts plus penalties and fees, or foreclosure proceedings would begin on the collateral in September. My father's creditor negotiation attorney filed a motion in the ongoing litigation seeking discovery into the beneficial ownership of the LLCs that had purchased his debt. The motion argued that there was potential that I was behind the purchases and that this constituted some kind of improper interference or conflict of interest. Rebecca responded with a motion to dismiss, argued that my father's personal financial arrangements were not relevant to the question of whether his threat in the March deposition constituted undue influence, argued that discovery into third-party business entities was not appropriately within the scope of the family dispute. The judge agreed, denied the motion for discovery, issued a ruling that said personal debts between separate parties were not relevant to the share transfer dispute unless there was clear evidence of improper conduct, which had not been established. My father's attorney, reading that ruling carefully, would have understood something that my father perhaps did not. The judge had not said the LLCs were not mine. The judge had said it did not matter for purposes of the current case whether they were mine or not. That was a subtle distinction, but it was the distinction that mattered. In October, $36 million of debt owned by my entities reached the point where foreclosure proceedings were formally initiated. Notices filed. Court dates set. The machinery of secured lending enforcement beginning to move in the way it moves when payments have been persistently missed and all cure periods have expired. My father called again. I did not answer. He left a message that said, "I know it is you. I know you bought the debt. You cannot do this. I am your father." I saved the voicemail. Did not return the call. His attorney reached out to Rebecca, proposed a global settlement. My father would drop the challenge to the share transfer arrangement, would acknowledge that I retained my shares, would sign documents confirming that the original succession plan remained in effect. In exchange, the debt collection would cease and reasonable payment terms would be established. Rebecca asked me what I wanted to do. I thought about it for 2 days. Then I told her, accept the settlement on the shares. The succession plan is reinstated exactly as it was, but the debt stands. He will pay every dollar he owes under the terms he agreed to when he took the loans. No forgiveness, no restructuring beyond what is commercially reasonable. He pays what he owes, Rebecca said. That is hard. He threatened to have me institutionalized, I said. Hard is appropriate. The settlement was signed in November. My father retained his shares until his death, at which point they would transfer to me as originally planned. He dropped all challenges to my existing shares. He acknowledged in writing that I was fully competent and capable of managing Cascadia. The debt collection continued. He sold the Aspen property in January, used the proceeds to pay down portions of what he owed, sold the penthouse in March, moved into a smaller place. The kind of downsizing that is painful when you are 72 and have spent 40 years building toward luxury. The Cascadia shares he had pledged as collateral were released when the secured loan was paid in full from the real estate sales. He kept them, but he no longer had the lifestyle that those shares were supposed to fund. I did not feel guilty. I want to be clear about that because it matters for understanding what I did and why I did it. He had threatened to take everything from me using coercion and institutional power. I had responded by purchasing his debt legally and enforcing it according to the terms he had agreed to. That was not cruelty. That was contract enforcement. It was the thing he had taught me when he was teaching me the hotel business. Agreements mean something. Terms matter. You pay what you owe. He had owed. I had made sure he paid. We speak occasionally now. Brief calls on holidays. The kind of surface contact that two people maintain when they are related by blood and bound by business interests and have learned that deeper engagement costs more than either of them is willing to spend. He has never apologized for the threat in March. Has never acknowledged that saying I will have you locked away to your daughter is the kind of thing that permanently changes a relationship. I have never told him directly that I bought his debt. He knows. His attorneys have pieced it together. But I have never confirmed it in conversation, and he has never asked me directly because asking would require him to admit that the thing happened and that it had consequences. So we exist in the careful silence of two people who understand what occurred and have decided that acknowledging it openly would cost more than maintaining the fiction that it is simply in the past. I am 38 now. Cascadia continues to grow. We opened 3 new properties last year. Revenue is strong. The board is confident in the direction we are heading. My leadership is not questioned. The shares are mine. Documented, settled, uncontestable. The debt is paid. The properties are sold. The lifestyle is adjusted. The terms were met. I did not destroy my father. I simply enforced what he owed and removed his ability to threaten me with institutionalization while doing it. That is not revenge. That is boundaries. Established clearly, maintained completely, documented thoroughly. Rebecca told me once, after the settlement was signed, that what I had done was one of the most strategically precise responses to a family wealth dispute she had seen in 32 years of practice. I did not do it to be precise. I did it because a man threatened to have me locked away unless I gave him what he wanted. And I decided that was the kind of threat that required a response that could not be mistaken for anything other than what it was. A line, drawn clearly, enforced completely. He does not cross it anymore. Neither do I. We exist on opposite sides of it. In the careful distance of two people who share blood and business and nothing else that matters. That is the only relationship I have with him now. And it is exactly the relationship his threat in March created. He made that choice. I simply made sure it had teeth. Here is what I want to know. If your parent threatened to have you declared incompetent and institutionalized unless you signed away your inheritance, would you have done what I did and bought their debt? Or would you have found a different way to respond? Some people say that family disputes should never escalate to the level of financial warfare. Others say that when someone threatens to lock you away, all boundaries have already been crossed and you respond with whatever tools are available. Do you think I was right to buy his debt and enforce it completely? Or should I have accepted the settlement and let the debt go? And the question that stays with me: when you enforce consequences against someone who raised you, does it make you powerful or does it make you just like them? Tell me your honest answer in the comments. If you believe people should face the consequences of their actions, hit subscribe. I have got more stories of justice that will blow your mind.